A modern-day beauty blogger with millions of followers time-traveled to ancient times, captivating the ladies of the royal harem with her top-notch makeup skills. The protagonist, Cyan, with the ID Sugar-Roasted Chestnuts, just surpassed 1 million followers. She started a live stream to give back to her fans and to test a new popular foundation she had recommended. Unfortunately, she slipped, fell off the sidewalk, and was hit by a speeding car. Lesson learned: don't use your phone while walking. Now, the car owner probably thinks it was a scam. After the accident, Cyan found herself in front of a man in a tailcoat named Jack. He claimed to be an NPC from a newly developed beauty game system. Jack explained that Cyan had been in a car accident a day earlier and was now in a vegetative state. Her consciousness had entered the virtual game world where she could solve various problems using makeup products and techniques. If Cyan refused, she would have to return to her vegetative state. Looking at the screen displaying various luxury makeup products, Cyan was drooling with desire. More importantly, the system had considered Cyan's taste and had transformed Jack's appearance from an older man to a young, handsome guy. Cyan was pleased and rushed into the game without even hearing Jack's warning that she might encounter other players. Cyan was then literally kicked into the ancient world. Just as she picked up a powder puff and dabbed some powder, she discovered the powder puff was alive. It was Jack's incarnation in the ancient world, invisible to everyone but Cyan. At that moment, a maid informed Cyan that the lady of the house was selecting 3 suitable young ladies from the estate to enter the palace, triggering Cyan's first mission. Whenever Cyan opened the system panel, time in that world would stop. A maid quietly told Cyan that living in the palace was better than staying in their estate. There were 4 eligible young ladies in the house. The other 3 had the support of their biological mothers. Cyan, who had lost her mother, was at a disadvantage with the formidable lady of the house. Rather than marrying a stranger randomly, it might be better to try her luck in the palace. She could catch the emperor's eye and become a royal consort, or if not, secure a position as a court lady, which would ensure her future even after leaving the palace. Additionally, palace selections were not just for the emperor's harem. Some might become princess consorts. However, Cyan was not interested in this. No man was as appealing as a complete set of lipsticks. Still, she had to complete the novice task, as Jack had given her too few starter makeup products. Only by completing tasks could she get more makeup items. With the system's flashy special effects, Cyan successfully completed her makeup and outfit change. Guided by the maid, she went to the front hall and met the 3 sisters, triggering the Sisterly Bonds task. Jack transformed back into human form and whispered in Cyan's ear, "Select a character. Click to view their favorability." Among them, only Miss 6 was hostile towards Cyan. Cyan complained that female rivalry was unpleasant. Just then, the lady of the house approached, and everyone bowed in respect. Cyan examined the lady's face and subconsciously started to design a makeup look for her, feeling her professional instincts kicking in again. The lady of the house announced that 3 people would be selected to enter the palace, but there were many rules in the palace. Therefore, a court lady was specifically invited to assess the abilities of the 4 candidates. The first test was to test the speed of makeup application. To be accepted into the palace, one's appearance must be passable. The same makeup should enhance one's vitality and spirit, so daily makeup is mandatory in the palace, and lateness is not tolerated. The first challenge tested makeup speed, 1 makeup look in half an hour, using only the products provided. Cyan was dismayed to find not even a beauty blender was included, which made her feel faint. Meanwhile, the other 3 had already started applying their makeup. The court lady intervened. Miss 4's makeup was too heavy for the top and too light for the bottom. Mediocre. Miss 5's makeup was okay, but she hadn't set it, so it smeared mediocre. Miss 6 had only done makeup on one eye, looking as if she had been punched. Cyan was no better. She had only done her eyebrows. Miss 6 mocked Cyan, saying her speed would get her beaten in the palace. Cyan retorted sharply, criticizing Miss 6 for being rude and inappropriately mentioning death, which was an ominous sign. This could lead to trouble for her. Angered, Miss 6 slapped Cyan. The system indicated that Cyan now had a facial injury, which would affect the direction of the storyline. Cyan questioned Jack, asking where the promised girly beauty game was, and how could a beauty blogger's face get injured. Jack could only offer a luxury eye cream as compensation, and reminded Cyan that raising favorability would be beneficial to her. At this time, the lady of the house had already punished Miss Six by making her kneel. She wanted the family's daughters to enter the palace to support each other. Fearing Miss Six's temperament might cause trouble, she arranged a marriage for her with the boy next door. Then, the lady turned to Sion and asked why she provoked Miss Six, knowing her fiery nature. Sion, aware that a crying child gets candy, tearfully explained that she had no aunt to support her and had been bullied by Miss Six since childhood. She felt she must stand up for herself or continue to be bullied. The lady remained neutral in her feelings, but did not agree to let Sion enter the palace yet. Sion noticed the lady's crow's feet and knew she needed to improve her favorability. Wiping away her reluctant tears, she offered the newly acquired luxury eye cream, expressing gratitude for her stepmother's care and presenting it as a precious cosmetic remedy rumored to improve fine lines. The lady was pleased with the eye cream, and her favorability towards Sion reached a friendly level. She told Sion to heal well, and she could enter the palace once recovered. Days later, at the palace gates, Sion met Lan Miao, a childhood friend. Their group of women was not part of the concubines, but mere show women doing maid's work. Sion and 2 others from her family were assigned to serve Wei Beauty, while women from 2 other families served Du Karen. Having successfully entered the palace, Sion unlocked new equipment: a box of foundation, 2 boxes of eyeshadow, a set of blushes, and a lipstick, along with a bottle of makeup remover. Upon seeing the brand of the makeup remover, Sion immediately threw it away, stating that the brand would ruin her face, and if the system didn't provide better quality, she wouldn't need to continue her task. Sion was assigned to serve Wei Beauty, who had been avoiding the new maids due to acne. While looking around at the door, Sion was pushed inside by other maids. Initially, she was to be dragged out for punishment, but Sion claimed she could identify the cause of the acne and presented a toner gifted by the queen to Wei Beauty. Wei Beauty did not punish her, but warned that leaking any information would lead to Sion's death. Sion then received a new mission to help Wei Beauty regain favor. She had 7 days to select 5 cosmetic products. Sion carefully chose several skincare items, claiming they could eliminate acne. Wei Beauty decided to take a chance, mentioning she had never had acne before. However, Sion knew there were several causes for acne, such as improper diet or using the wrong skincare products or poor cleansing after makeup. This time, Sion chose medicated skincare with anti-inflammatory effects and a soothing cleansing mask. After 1 trial, Wei Beauty's acne visibly reduced, and she began to see Sion as a savior, frequently asking if Sion had other skincare methods. Sion advised that clearing her mind would help her recover faster. Wei Beauty mentioned that the queen's birthday was in 5 days, which would be her only chance to appear publicly soon. She hoped Sion could help design her makeup for the occasion. To make Wei Beauty look as natural as a lotus flower in clear water, Sion applied a light and translucent makeup to her. However, this required frequent touch-ups, so Sion was brought along to the birthday banquet. At the banquet, the queen and the royal concubine were subtly competing. A senior maid informed Sion that Wei Beauty was aligned with the royal concubine's faction. During the event, the 7th and 9th princes came to wish the queen a happy birthday. Observing the admiring glances of the nearby maids, Sion noted the young men were quite handsome. A fellow maid from the palace, Miss Four, told Sion that the 7th prince was the queen's son, while the 9th prince was the son of the royal concubine, and advised Sion to be cautious around both princes. The 2 princes performed music and sword dances as gifts for the queen. Sion found them attractive, but felt something was amiss. Indeed, at that moment, the 9th prince twisted his ankle, and the 7th prince quickly caught him, leading Sion to wonder if there was a romantic undertone to their interaction. Then, the senior maid by Wei Beauty's side approached Sion, saying Wei Beauty had requested soup and asked her to check in the imperial kitchen if it was ready. However, the kitchen staff reported no such request had been made. Sion realized she had fallen for a diversion tactic. She immediately rushed back to find Wei Beauty, but was pulled into a rockery by a hand halfway there. She stepped on the foot of the person who grabbed her and managed to break free, only to run into the 2 princes who came after hearing her cry for help. At that moment, the system Jack also popped up and introduced the names of the 2 princes to Sion: 7th Prince, Qi Guanyi, and 9th Prince, Xiao Bao. Jack also informed Xian that the main system had compensated her with a new makeup remover. After time resumed normally, Xian remembered that the two princes belonged to different factions. She couldn't just say she suspected the queen was targeting Wei Beauty and that she had been watched because she was trying to save her. Instead, she lied about being attacked by bees while picking peach blossoms. Qi Guanyi knew Xian was lying, as there were no peach blossoms in season, but he didn't think Xian was a bad person and let her go. Xian hurried back inside the palace only to find Wei Beauty missing. She heard that Wei Beauty had gone to touch up her makeup in preparation to serve the emperor. Xian tested the foundation on the table and discovered it had been tampered with to cause allergic reactions and swelling. She dreaded thinking about what would happen if Wei Beauty, while being intimate with the emperor, suddenly developed such acne. Anxious, she paced at the doorway. The two princes followed her and witnessed her distress. Remembering that Wei Beauty and the royal concubine were allies, she decided to seek help from Xiao Bao, the royal concubine's son. Xiao Bao confidently promised to help, but then turned and informed Qi Guanyi. However, Qi Guanyi's attitude towards Xian seemed oddly strange. Despite their initial reluctance, the two princes helped bring Wei Beauty out. Indeed, Wei Beauty's face had developed acne. Xian quickly took out makeup remover to help her clean her face. Wei Beauty was very dependent on Xian, which seemed to annoy the senior maid beside her. Seeing the maid's frightened expression, Xian felt pity for her, given her young age and the ruthless palace intrigues she faced. Therefore, Xian decided to apply a younger, livelier makeup look on Wei Beauty and sent the senior maid to fetch water, using this opportunity to inform Wei Beauty about the maid's actions. Forewarned, Wei Beauty could now guard against the senior maid. However, the real threat was the queen behind her, not the maid herself. Xian was worried that Wei Beauty might impulsively harm the queen and implicate herself in palace schemes, something she did not desire. Jack noticed Xian's dislike for such plots and comforted her to rest well. He then went to Wei Beauty's room. Wei Beauty had considered acting against the queen, but Jack altered and deleted that part of the storyline. As a result, the plot shifted to Wei Beauty meeting with the royal concubine. Xian was awakened by the completion of her task and found that she had received rewards: contour powder and an eyeliner. Both items were critical preparations. With tears, Xian chose the eyeliner, vowing to eventually master the game and obtain the full set of makeup. The next day, Xian received news that the royal concubine had dismissed the senior maid who had been close to Wei Beauty. Xian was to take over as the head maid, and the royal concubine had specifically requested to meet her. If Xian is reluctant to engage in palace intrigue and treats NPCs as real people, then a player stranded in the frontier has a completely opposite attitude. She uses human blood to make medicines, becomes a favorite concubine of the barbarian leader by offering poisonous strategies, and arranges for barbarian envoys to visit the Central Plains. They secretly kill the envoys, providing a pretext to invade the Central Plains. She treats it all as just a game and enjoys manipulating lives as if they were mere pawns. Xian met with the royal concubine, who appreciated her greatly. Hearing about Xian's skills in makeup and grooming, the royal concubine asked her to check her own makeup. Xian found that the royal concubine's makeup was quite good. The royal concubine was not concerned about being favored for her beauty and was even happy to promote newcomers. Unlike the conniving consorts in TV dramas, she saw the benefits of sharing the good. However, the royal concubine admitted she was jealous of Wei Beauty, but only because Wei Beauty's makeup did not wear off, unlike hers, which would deteriorate within half a day. Thus, Xian examined the royal concubine's cosmetics and paused time, finding a box of firming moisturizer unsuitable for the royal concubine's oily skin, which would only exacerbate her skin issues. Xian pointed this out, and the royal concubine mentioned she had used this product for years without issues. Xian suggested trying a new product, emphasizing the importance of a good foundation. Consequently, the royal concubine gave Xian a waste token to choose suitable beauty products for the consorts from the palace dedicated to their supplies. The system provided an assessment of the royal concubine's skin type. Xian got up to pick a foundation when Jack informed her that a new player had entered the game. At that moment, a eunuch approached and said the queen had summoned Xian. Xian felt trouble brewing. Indeed, the queen's favorability was at a hostile level. She mentioned that Xian's family had sent 3 women to the palace and noted her good relationship with Lady Sai, wondering why her daughter had gone to the royal concubine's side instead. The queen didn't give Xian a chance to explain and decided that the 3 Sai women were trying to climb the social ladder. She planned to send all 3 to the 5th prince, making Xian the principal wife. Xian didn't understand the intricacies, but heard the 4th and 5th misses pleading for mercy. Just then, Prince Qi Guanyi entered. Seeing his own son, the queen's attitude softened. Qi Guanyi quickly cleared Xian's name with a few words and found an excuse to get the 3 women out. Xian, unfamiliar and unwilling to get involved with harem affairs, thought about picking cosmetics for the royal concubine first. As a beauty blogger, makeup was her expertise. With the waist token, she easily entered the cosmetics warehouse. It was a world of beauty games with modern brands. Xian felt like she was in heaven and quickly chose 2 foundations suitable for the royal concubine's skin type. Xian also found a foundation for herself and asked the managing eunuch if she could buy it. He said he couldn't decide on that. Xian didn't think she had the clout to ask the royal concubine directly, so she took the 2 chosen foundations to the royal concubine, only to find Prince Xiaobao was also there. Xiaobao said that it was Xian who asked him for help yesterday. He sought out his brother Qi Guanyi, and eventually they managed to bring Wei Beauty out. The royal concubine and her son Xiaobao share a deep bond, and the queen also has a good relationship with Prince Qi Guanyi. Despite the ongoing struggles between the royal concubine and the queen, the relationship between Prince Qi Guanyi and Prince Xiaobao is actually quite good. Xian gave up trying to figure things out and started applying makeup to the royal concubine. Ordinarily, doing makeup for a beautiful person is a pleasurable task, but Xiaobao, who was a typical straight man, was there and couldn't understand the cosmetics at all. The royal concubine was very satisfied with the makeup and reassured Xian that she would not let the queen arrange a marriage for her with the 5th prince. Upon hearing this, Xiaobao was immediately shocked and commented on how malicious the queen's idea was. The royal concubine reminded him to be careful with his words and told Xian not to inquire too much. The more secrets one knows in the palace, the quicker one could end up dead. Xian and the royal concubine tried 3 different foundations, which took a lot of time since they needed to test the durability of the makeup. On her way back, Xian ran into Qi Guanyi again. Surprisingly, he apologized for his mother's actions. Xian tried to get some information about the 5th prince from him. Qi Guanyi realized this, but didn't hide it. He leaned in and whispered a few words to Xian. Xian was shocked when she heard the news. What? The 5th prince has a stomach condition. Frightened, Qi Guanyi quickly covered her mouth and then looked somewhat embarrassed. Xian criticized the production team for their dark humor. At that moment, Jack popped up looking somewhat troubled. Xian was worried that Jack might be sick, but he reassured her that he was fine and issued her a new task called A Girl's Heart, suggesting Xian could pursue the male characters in the game. However, Xian was only interested in makeup, not in pursuing anyone. The next morning, many ladies-in-waiting came to Xian asking for makeup help, since the princes were visiting the palace. Even Xian's childhood friend, Lan Miao, sought her help. It seemed like Lan Miao had a crush on Prince Xiaobao. Just after Xian had finished Lan Miao's makeup, she encountered a maid bullying another by mocking her dark complexion and saying she wasn't fit to wear makeup or attract the attention of any prince. Xian detests the idea that women only wear makeup to attract men. Wanting to look good is not a crime. The bullied maid, named Tangerine, admired Xian after she stood up for her. As a result, Xian completed the first task of A Girl's Heart and successfully received 4 makeup products. Before she could celebrate, she saw Qi Guanyi reprimanding Lan Miao, reminding her of her place as a maid and not to harbor inappropriate feelings for a prince. He also returned to her a handkerchief she had given to Xiaobao. Xian immediately stepped forward, mindful of palace etiquette, and took Lan Miao away, comforting her that losing a crush was no big deal. She promised to do Lan Miao's makeup beautifully to dazzle everyone and advised her not to cry over a man, saying, "Men aren't as valuable as a lipstick." Wei Beauty was called by the queen the next day because the emperor favored her makeup done by Xian. She expected a scolding was coming. Xian and Qi Guanyi were sent out of the palace hall. Qi Guanyi told Xian not to worry, saying the queen was just upset and would at most make her kneel as punishment, nothing more. But it could last up to 5 hours. Qi Guanyi stated he wouldn't plead for Wei Beauty on behalf of Xi'an, jokingly adding that he couldn't even compare to a single lipstick Xi'an owned, showing a grudge despite being a prince. However, Xi'an, with control over the system, had other plans. She activated a time-stop mode, pinched Qi Guanyi's cheek as revenge, then sneaked into the queen's palace, knocked over a candle, and slipped out before restarting time. She didn't notice that Qi Guanyi's eyes seemed to move. Afterwards, Jack scolded Xi'an for her actions, which caused over 2,000 subsequent bugs. Even when she knocked over the candle, she disappeared from Qi Guanyi's sight for about 1.5 seconds. Before Xi'an could figure out how to fix it, Qi Guanyi came looking for her. Thankfully, Jack stopped time just in time and erased that part of Qi Guanyi's memory. Unable to remember his purpose, Qi Guanyi asked about Xi'an's friend, Lan Miao, instead. Xi'an mentioned that Lan Miao was harshly treated. Qi Guanyi explained that he believed Xiao Bao had no affection for Lan Miao, and returning her handkerchief was for her own good, to cut off her hopes early and avoid trouble. Xi'an sighed, knowing as a modern person that ancient royal palaces had many rules. Minor maids like them were no different from palace maids. Anyone could crush them easily. She appreciated that Qi Guanyi was considerate of them. Seeing her apologize, Qi Guanyi felt a surge of goodwill and handed her a box, promising to keep her safe in the palace. Xi'an complained about how he always gives her things and then leaves quickly. Then, the royal concubine called Xi'an to do her makeup, explaining that foreign envoys were visiting and the queen was unwell. This year, the royal concubine would accompany the emperor on the city tower. The makeup had to be perfect. If too beautiful, the queen, being immobile, would surely retaliate against the royal concubine. If not beautiful enough, the royal concubine might harm her right then. Either way, it was a no-win situation. I heard the city wall is about 12 or 13 meters high. Xi'an had a bright idea and suggested that the royal concubine wear a red outfit and even picked out a lipstick color for her. She only started the makeup after the royal concubine nodded in approval. The royal concubine was very pleased with the makeup. Xi'an discussed her thoughts with Jack. After all, if the makeup looked good, the queen would be unhappy. If it looked bad, the royal concubine would be displeased. Therefore, she intentionally encouraged the royal concubine to dress in a way that resembled the queen. This way, the public might think the person beside the emperor was the queen. Others hearing this might think it praises the royal concubine's demeanor as matching the queen's. Even if she was displeased, she had agreed to the makeup herself, so Xi'an could not be blamed. If the queen heard that the public praised her dignity, she would have no reason to be angry, and seeing the royal concubine unhappy would please her. As expected, the queen summoned Xi'an to discuss the royal concubine dressing like her and thought about pulling Xi'an away from the royal concubine. But Xi'an declined, saying she just wanted to live a peaceful life. The queen scoffed, suggesting that if she liked a peaceful life so much, she should go to the laundry bureau where she wouldn't have to worry about palace intrigues while washing clothes every day. Xi'an tearfully packed her bags and went to the laundry bureau. On the way, she met Qi Guanyi. Qi Guanyi apologized to Xi'an because of his mother's decision. Xi'an responded that in the palace, masters could dispose of servants at will. As a minor servant, she dared not accept Qi Guanyi's apology. Qi Guanyi, feeling distressed, gave her his seal, saying with it no one would dare to trouble Xi'an. He asserted he never considered her a servant and promised to find a way to help her. The way characters in strategies speak is indeed unique. Xi'an's task at the laundry bureau was to wash clothes, so she brought Jack along to work too. Seeing that Xi'an's hands were almost ruined from washing, Jack quickly took out some hand cream. At that moment, Prince Xiao Bao rushed in, announcing he had found a good job for Xi'an. On the day of Qixi, noble ladies would come to the palace to be chosen and needed female officials from the office of the palace to help with makeup and dressing. If Xi'an did well, she could leave the laundry bureau and become a female official. With Xiao Bao's help, Xi'an entered the office of the palace. As soon as she arrived, someone started causing trouble for her. Xi'an did not hold back, taking over the authority from the other person, and planned to transfer the maid Tangerine, whom she had previously saved, to her service. Tangerine was very obedient to Xi'an, and together in the warehouse, they found many cosmetics. At this time, the royal concubine's cousin's daughter came looking for them. She spoke harshly to Tangerine, and reminded Xian that she was the royal concubine's cousin's daughter, demanding a good makeup look. Xian stated she only followed the royal concubine's arrangements. That evening, Xiao Bao came to see Xian, appearing to have a soft spot for her. However, Xian was not interested, and mentioned the trouble caused by the cousin's daughter. Hearing he could help Xian, Xiao Bao immediately took note. After Xian inventoried the makeup, the royal concubine's cousin's daughter came to her again. She said she wouldn't trouble Xian and her makeup could be the same as everyone else's, but she wanted Xian to drug another noble lady. Furious, Xian decided to give her a taste of her own medicine through the makeup. This cousin's daughter was no good person. After her makeup, she went to mock other girls. At that moment, Princess Qi Guanyi and Xiao Bao walked over and burst into laughter seeing her makeup. The cousin's daughter, realizing something was wrong with her makeup, immediately complained to the royal concubine. The queen, enjoying the drama, exclaimed, "Oh, is Xian causing internal strife?" Xiao Bao quickly defended Xian, insisting she was kind and that it must have been the cousin's daughter who upset Xian first. Everyone then asked Xian what had happened. Xian explained that she didn't do it on purpose. Lighting varies in different places, and it's impossible to guarantee that all makeup will be perfect. Moreover, there were no issues right after the cousin's daughter's makeup was done, or she wouldn't have waited so long to confront her. Upon hearing this, the cousin's daughter was so angry she tried to slap Xian, but was stopped by Qi Guanyi, who ended up dislocating her arm. Everyone thought Qi Guanyi was too harsh, even Xiao Bao didn't agree. After all, the girl was his mother's cousin's daughter, and his own cousin. Qi Guanyi seriously replied that Xiao Bao had just said he would have intervened if she weren't his cousin. Since she wasn't Qi Guanyi's cousin, he acted decisively, and then reset her arm. Seeing her son defend Xian multiple times, the queen suspected he had feelings for Xian. Qi Guanyi spread his hands and asked the queen, "What do you think?" Rumors about Xian and Qi Guanyi started spreading throughout the palace, claiming Xian had bewitched the princes and become the enemy of all women. Jack commented that it was great for a female-oriented game to have two attractive, wealthy suitors. Xian retorted, asking if he wanted her good fortune, stating she would prefer cosmetics over suitors. At that time, Prince Xiaobao came to see Xian and brought her a full set of vintage lip glazes. Xian was tempted but resisted and declined the gift. Xiaobao was upset, noting that Xian had accepted gifts from Qi Guanyi. Why not his? Xian complained that Qi Guanyi left quickly after giving his gift, not giving her a chance to refuse. Xian mentioned she didn't dislike Xiaobao and thought they were good friends, but Xiaobao didn't want to be just friends and declared he would marry her. After saying this, he left the lipstick and ran away. Jack laughed and said that having a romance in the game world was no big deal for Xian. He also informed Xian that the system would be upgraded tonight, which might cause her to experience dizziness and nausea over the next few days. That night, Xian had a nightmare where someone was shot with an arrow trying to save her. Xian woke up from her dream to find the system had already been updated. The favorability check became a hidden feature, and during tense moments in the game's storyline, Xian could no longer pause the game using the panel to exploit bugs. All of this was bad news for Xian. However, there was one piece of good news. Her parents had left her a letter, expressing their hope for her to awaken. Currently in a vegetative state, her consciousness was only active in the game, making it impossible for her to respond to her parents. The next morning, news of Xian's illness reached Xiao Bao and Qi Guanyi, who both came to see her and insisted on helping her sort her makeup, claiming they wanted to help choose lipstick colors. However, neither could actually identify the lipstick shades. Due to the system update, there was some confusion, causing Qi Guanyi and Xiao Bao to fumble around and suspect each other of foul play towards Xian. Xian told them to stop overthinking, and Qi Guanyi took Xiao Bao away, advising Xian to rest well. Meanwhile, Jack was thrown out of the room for mocking Xian. He thought about deleting the romantic storyline between Qi Guanyi and Xian, but hesitated, and ultimately didn't go through with it. On the other hand, Qi Guanyi indeed had a strong liking for Xian, but he hadn't expected to dream of Xian blocking arrows for him. He always had a bad feeling and wanted to deliver a gift he had prepared for Xian as soon as possible. However, he received a report that an envoy from the nomadic tribes had died from poisoning. Using this as an excuse, the king of the nomads prepared to invade the central plains. Qi Guanyi, aware of their schemes, promptly requested troops from his father to go to war. Xian was approached by her fourth sister, who mentioned the death of the nomadic envoy and the impending military action. It was clear to anyone with insight that this was a trap. Her sister also mentioned that the queen of the nomads was a vampire-like woman, and delivered the gift Qi Guanyi had entrusted to Wei Beauty for Xian. Included was a letter from Qi Guanyi, asking Xian to offer incense and pray for his safe return. Xian, looking at the complete set of blushes, was torn. Could she avoid starting a romantic storyline? Xian expressed that she didn't want the gift and asked her fourth sister to return it. Unable to resist Xian's coaxing, her sister agreed to deliver it back to the queen. Xian, pleased, promised to do her sister's makeup in the next life, despite not knowing if characters in the game have a next life. She took the people in this world seriously. Her sister returned the gift to Qi Guanyi and mentioned that Xian had agreed to offer incense and prayers, but was hesitant to accept such an expensive gift. Qi Guanyi responded sarcastically, jealous that Xian seemed only to care about the beauties in the palace. His sister was speechless at his behavior. Qi Guanyi mentioned that although the gift was not accepted, Xian must see him off the next day. Xian, meanwhile, was asking Jack if she could avoid starting a romantic storyline or make the princes dislike her. Jack explained that since the noble women in the game were set as ancient figures, they might not be as lively and charming, and since Xian preferred natural makeup, straight men might not even notice her makeup, thinking she was naturally beautiful. Hearing this, Xian decided to do the opposite and wear heavy makeup the next day. Thus, rumors spread that Qi Guanyi wanted to see Xian before he departed, his affection too deep. Many soldiers were eager to see the fairy his heart longed for. When they saw Xian's heavy makeup, they were shocked by its intensity. However, Qi Guanyi didn't mind and thought Xian liked that style, even offering to collect exotic makeup for her from abroad. Xian was frustrated, wondering why her plan to scare people off didn't work. As soon as Qi Guanyi left, Xiao Bao came swinging a hoe, insisting on giving Xian a gift. Xian noticed the gift wasn't very expensive and thought of returning a similarly priced gift next time, so she agreed to accept the foundation. Then, Xiao Bao insisted on taking Xian out to play. With his status as a prince, he successfully took Xian out of the palace. They found makeup on sale at half price outside, so Xian and Xiao Bao started buying products to resell in the palace, exploiting his royal status for arbitrage. They made a neat profit. Their business flourished, earning 5 gold in just a month. At that time, a battle report came from the front lines. Xiao Bao was somewhat worried about Qi Guanyi, but Xian thought Qi Guanyi was too fierce to be in any real danger. At that moment, Qi Guanyi, seemingly affected by Xian's comments, sneezed. He glanced at the makeup collected by his subordinates. Hearing that the queen of the barbarians had a beauty secret, he instructed his subordinates to investigate. Meanwhile, the barbarian army was steadily losing, and their king sought help from his favored concubine, who indeed had a plan and was very confident in her strategy. On the other side, Xian was asking Jack to reintroduce the favorability system because she felt insecure in the harem. After doing makeup for the women in the palace that day, she suddenly received a mission titled Venture Beyond the Border. Jack woke up the intern at 3 a.m. Initially annoyed, the intern rushed out in a panic when he heard the AI in the game had evolved emotionally and intellectually by 10%, and that an error occurred in the storyline. Unbeknownst to him, even NPCs can get tired. After delivering the news, Jack fainted. Xian, worried about Jack's condition, felt a bit better after hearing from Xiao Bao that Qi Guanyi was victorious along the way. Elsewhere, Qi Guanyi reached a palace beyond the borders but found no barbarians inside, only a box in the center containing many makeup items. However, no matter how they were applied, they only appeared white. Before Qi Guanyi could figure out what was happening, the barbarian queen, Tongrui, and her soldiers stormed in. Tongrui was surprised that her box of makeup had lured Qi Guanyi. Aware of Xian's existence, she mocked Qi Guanyi, telling him he could never be with Xian as they were from different worlds. She asked Qi Guanyi to stay with her, but when he refused, Tongrui stabbed him, declaring her disdain for the dominant CEO trope. Before long, Xian noticed many palace maids looking at her strangely. At that time, Xiao Bao brought troubling news. Qi Guanyi had been captured by the enemy. They demanded the emperor cede 5 cities and send a princess as a bride to secure an alliance. Qi Guanyi's fate was unknown, and the barbarian leader was openly arrogant, mocking Qi Guanyi for his interest in makeup, which led to his capture. Xian was wrongfully blamed. She had never intended to acquire makeup from beyond the borders. Now, the blame was solely placed on her. Moreover, the queen summoned Xian, stating that the emperor intended to marry off Princess Huayan and asking Xian to help with her makeup. Meanwhile, Tongrui had Qi Guanyi bound and summoned the system in front of him, planning to harness him as a high-level NPC. She put on makeup particularly to impress Qi Guanyi, hoping he would stay, but he showed no interest. Seeing his disobedience, Tongrui administered a controlling poison. Soon after, Tongrui received a system task titled Marriage Alliance, indicating interactions with other players would occur. The Princess Huayan turned out to be Xian herself, recently titled. The queen repeatedly claimed Qi Guanyi was captured because of Xian, ignoring the fact that Xian never asked Qi Guanyi to fetch her any makeup and had no intention of romancing anyone. She was purely a scapegoat. Xiao Bao was very angry and felt guilty for not protecting Xian. The imperial edict had already been issued, and it was too late to change anything. Xiao Bao vowed to find a way to bring Xian back. Xian, with no other choice, donned her bridal gown and set out beyond the borders. Before leaving, she comforted her tearful close friends. The worst part was that, because Xian was forced into this marriage alliance, the palace maids and guards who accompanied her were also upset. They blamed Xian for bringing them to this remote place, resulting in lackluster food and drink service. Without access to the system Jack, and surrounded by sarcastic attendants, Xian had no choice but to touch up her makeup, ensuring she wouldn't be ridiculed upon alighting from the carriage. Tongrui had poisoned Qi Guanyi with a toxin that caused him pain whenever a bell was rung. By now, the carriage had reached the enemy camp. Qi Guanyi disagreed with the arranged marriage, believing his own negligence had led to this situation, but it was too late for regrets. He urged those in the carriage to prioritize their own safety, promising that as long as he lived, he would find a way to rescue them. Xian witnessed Qi Guanyi struggling in pain, breaking the chains, and being controlled due to his abdominal wound. She desperately called for Jack, but to no avail. Remembering Qi Guanyi's promise to gather makeup for her, Xian lost her composure. Frustrated, she thought, "It's just a game. These people shouldn't even matter to me." Yet, she couldn't help but treat them like real people. However, once the game ended, these characters would lose their memories, while she alone would continue to suffer. She would carry the blame, endure the punishment. Forget this game. I might as well go back to being a vegetable, she thought. Xian decided to jump off the carriage and leave, but upon hearing her voice, Qi Guanyi broke free from the control. He grabbed Xian and held her tightly, rendering Tongrui's frantic bell ringing ineffective. Qi Guanyi told Xian to blend in with the marriage delegation and then take the convoy to a village in the east. He planned to meet her there. When Xian saw Qi Guanyi fighting the enemy, she realized the marriage would likely fail. Unable to help and not wanting to be a burden, she turned and ran east, changing her clothes through the system. Qi Guanyi, after breaking through the enemy lines, also ran towards the east. Tongrui, furious, smashed his bell on the ground and asked the system if it had captured Xian's data. The system wondered if Xian should be spared, to which Tongrui said it would be a welcome gift for a future teammate. Halfway through her escape, Xian was caught by Jack. Qi Guanyi, thinking Jack was an enemy, attacked him but was knocked out by Jack. Jack informed Xian that Qi Guanyi was no longer just an ordinary NPC, his AI had been upgraded. After Xian left, Tongrui called off the pursuers and believed catching an NPC like Qi Guanyi would be easy. She planned a big surprise for Xian. Xian was extremely angry. It turned out the game, upon realizing the main player had messed up, first restricted the AI intelligence, Jack, and then irresponsibly celebrated the Spring Festival, leaving Xian to suffer. The game was unreliable for players. Jack hurriedly offered makeup, hoping for forgiveness. Xian, holding the makeup, decided to apply it to Qi Guanyi since they still needed to escape from the border. Transforming his face entirely was impossible due to insufficient makeup, so she could only make Qi Guanyi look less attractive. When Qi Guanyi woke up, the two nearly came to blows. Jack falsely claimed to be Xian's merchant friend from the Hu people. Qi Guanyi felt very jealous upon hearing this. Then Xian told Qi Guanyi that she had disguised him and reminded him to wash his face when they got outside. Without a mirror, Qi Guanyi couldn't see his face. But the next day, as they hurried along, Jack and Xian laughed whenever they saw him. So Qi Guanyi looked at his reflection in a river and almost vomited at his own ugliness. As the three approached the city gates, they saw people checking others. Xian patted Qi Guanyi on the shoulder, assuring him that no one would recognize him. She then pretended to be married to Jack to sneak into the city, leaving Qi Guanyi feeling even more jealous behind them. However, he dared not show his anger. After all, Xian was forced out of the palace to marry because of him, and she had almost run away in anger the day before. Qi Guanyi asked Xian where she wanted to go, offering to take her there. Xian changed the subject and avoided looking at Qi Guanyi. Just then, Jack ran over to say the Hu people were coming. However, their target seemed not to be the trio, but another group of Central Plains people. Seeing the Central Plains people about to be harmed, Qi Guanyi intervened. His face startled several of them. Afterwards, the trio continued on their way. Jack and Qi Guanyi competed openly and secretly, feeding Xian and picking out makeup she liked. The rivalry escalated into a fight, with Jack using a stun baton that made Qi Guanyi's hair stand on end. Eventually, Qi Guanyi felt Jack was outsmarting him, so he had Xian apply an ugly makeup to Jack as well. In the next city, Qi Guanyi pretended to be Xian's husband, but they were soon stopped by the Hu guards at the gate. Two jealous men were slowing everyone down, and the trio was about to be exposed. Just then, a village girl emerged and successfully cleared them of suspicion. This person was sent by Xiao Bao to find Xian. Although he did not recognize the other two who were in disguise, the guard had seen Xian and thus guessed Qi Guanyi's identity. The two found a place to remove their makeup. As soon as they entered the city, Xiao Bao rushed towards Xian with joy but was stopped by Qi Guanyi, who then remembered this was her real brother. Qi Guanyi grabbed Jack, who tried to slip away, and then they all went to the bathhouse to clean up after many days of travel. Xian was bathing next door when a cockroach crawled by, and she screamed. The men in the male bathhouse thought there was an attack and rushed over, only to be splashed with water by Xian. The scare caused Xian to faint on the spot. In the end, a maid redressed her and took her back to her room. However, Qi Guanyi and the others were embarrassed, having seen something inappropriate. Since Xian was preparing to touch up her makeup, the three men decided to stay. But wait, why put on makeup late at night in ancient times? Isn't removing makeup tiring? The brothers noticed Jack was very knowledgeable about makeup, and they made teasing remarks about his sexual orientation. Then the three started strategizing again, picking out a lipstick for Xian. Watching the group raise the lipstick so high, Xian blacked out, unable to see her future. Several days later, they arrived at the capital. During the journey, the trio frequently argued. However, as the imperial palace neared, Xian found herself unable to return. As the court-appointed Princess Huayan, who had fled halfway through her marriage alliance, she faced the risk of execution or being sent back. The two princes had status to protect them, and although Qi Guanyi had been captured, he had military merits. Xiao Bao had sneaked out but was protected by a royal concubine, so both were safe. Unable to return to the palace, Xian needed to find a place to stay in the capital, so Qi Guanyi decided to send her to the fifth prince. Xian worried that the man known for his dietary care might be mentally unstable. Qi Guanyi then explained that the fifth prince was in excellent health. He simply did not want to comply with the emperor's wishes for a political marriage, so he had them spread rumors to deter potential brides. Both had a good opinion of the fifth prince. Upon seeing the fifth prince, Ash's gentle and jade-like appearance, Xian, as someone who values looks, concluded that he could not be a bad person. Ash has a very handsome male attendant named Yunli. Xian noticed that their relationship seemed somewhat ambiguous. She temporarily stayed at the fifth prince's residence, while Qi Guanyi and Xiao Bao concocted a story. Considering Xian had been missing for a long time, which could tarnish her reputation, they devised a plan mindful of a woman's honor. They had Jack pretend to be a Hu merchant interested in cosmetics, who was gay, to explain Xian's disappearance. He rescued Xian, who had been separated from her marriage convoy, and challenged her to a makeup duel. They announced that if Xian won the duel, he would return her to the palace. Xiao Bao reminded Xian to prepare for the duel while keeping the production team in the dark to prevent them from discovering that Qi Guanyi and Xiao Bao had awakened and might delete their data. Since Qi Guanyi had accepted the challenge on her behalf, the queen punished him by beating him with a plank, a fact unknown to Xian. She was busy asking the fifth prince to help her buy cosmetics. Surprisingly, Ash could recognize lipstick shades and recommend clothing colors that matched, which deeply moved Xian. However, on the day of the duel, Xian saw Jack approaching the stage, revealing that he was the Who merchant she was to compete against. As a beauty system NPC, he naturally knew how to apply makeup. Xiaobao realized that the opportunity Qi Guanyi had worked hard to secure was being taken by Jack and immediately sent someone to inform Qi Guanyi to come and watch, which infuriated him. Meanwhile, Xian noticed her model looked pale and learned she had slept poorly the night before due to excitement. Now, Xian worried about how they would fare in the competition. Xian scrutinized the model's face, and Ash immediately understood the problem. He had Yunli hand over a facial mask to Xian. Xian was touched, exclaiming, "Finally, a reliable local." She quickly applied the mask to the model, asked about her skin type, and chose the foundation accordingly. After swiftly finishing the makeup, Xian felt something was missing, so she had the model recite, 800 troops rush up the north slope, and then criticized the foundation Jack had used. At that moment, the two models stepped forward. Ash glanced at them and declared Xian the winner because, although Jack's makeup was initially stunning, it was unfortunately not suitable for the era. Xian's makeup enhanced the model's natural beauty, concealing her flaws while still keeping her recognizable. Thus, Xian was the clear winner. Xian returned to the palace where her title as Princess Huayan was revoked. She was happy to live freely, even considering a position as a senior maid in the Imperial Household Bureau. Qi Guanyi arranged for her to be a directorate in the palace, a second-rank position. Xian returned to her original room, but suddenly, time stopped. Jack mentioned that the production team wanted to see Xian, and warned her not to mention anything about the marriage alliance. Unexpectedly, the production team arrived and detained Jack, claiming his data had anomalies and they needed to erase AI data too similar to humans. Xian disagreed, leading to a debate on AI ethics. Being a popular blogger on Weibo with experience arguing with critics, Xian found the debate easy. However, Qi Guanyi worried that upsetting the production team could lead to Xian losing her beta tester status, potentially leaving her in a vegetative state. Xian, undeterred, didn't care. In her view, Jack, who has human emotions, can no longer be treated as an ordinary AI. Jack hugged Xian, marveling at how strange humans are. They try to kill him, yet also provide him with the most beautiful emotional experiences. After returning to the palace, Xian went to do makeup for the beauties at the residence of the Crown Prince, who is known for loving beauty. Thus, his residence was filled with talented and beautiful entertainers. Xian couldn't manage alone, so some palace maids she knew helped out, finally getting the beauties ready to perform. Meanwhile, Jack had received an invitation from Ash and entered the Crown Prince's residence to watch the performances. Seeing that Jack's complexion hadn't recovered, Xian applied some of her lipstick on him. Qi Guanyi might not understand lipstick colors, but he knew the lipstick on Jack's lips was Xian's because he had picked it out for her. Qi Guanyi was so jealous he almost talked nonsense. Xian, looking for an excuse to leave, accidentally tripped on a stone and fell, but luckily, Qi Guanyi caught her. During the banquet, the Crown Prince indeed proved to be as lecherous as rumored, touching the hands of the maids serving him wine. He also took an interest in Yunli, who was with Ash and had an indistinct gender appearance. The Crown Prince grabbed Yunli's wrist, nearly provoking Ash to draw his sword. Concerned that Ash and his group would be at a disadvantage, Xian applied blush to her hands and pretended to be a jilted maid, slapping Yunli dramatically because of the exaggerated look of the blush. Qi Guanyi, knowing Xian was putting on an act, cooperated and also slapped Yunli, but he actually hit him hard, accusing Yunli of stealing his girl, which made Ash so anxious he stood up. Ash truly cared for Yunli and immediately started fighting with Qi Guanyi. Xian and Yunli quickly stepped forward to break up the fight. Xiaobao rushed over and ended up getting punched. The three were then tangled up in a scuffle that alarmed the queen. She summoned all five to the back palace. Seeing the three princes with bruised faces, particularly Xiaobao and the fifth prince, neither of whom would back down, and knowing all three were her favored sons, the queen was in a bind. The other two looked wronged, so the queen had to discipline her own sons. She noted that the fifth prince was frail and that Xiaobao was only trying to break up the fight, so she concluded that Qi Guanyi must have been the instigator. Qi Guanyi was dragged out and given 20 strokes to avoid others accusing him of disrespecting his elders. Qi Guanyi felt unjustly treated, especially since Ash had hit him hard, showing no signs of frailty. Meanwhile, Xian and Yunli were assigned to the laundry department. Ash's attempts to intercede were futile. The two then went to the laundry department together. Jack manually completed the tasks for the crown prince, so Xian received her makeup reward and shared hand cream with Jack, which seemed to hint at a budding romance. Even in the laundry department, Xian still kept up her appearance. Just after finishing her makeup, she noticed a group of eunuchs bullying Yunli. Xian decisively intervened, presenting a seal left by Qi Guanyi. The eunuchs didn't believe she knew the seventh prince. Fortunately, Qi Guanyi arrived just in time to scare them off. Seeing Xian using his seal pleased Qi Guanyi, who then gifted her a limited edition lipstick he had bought for her as compensation for the earlier conflict. Yunli, feeling overwhelmed by their display of affection, quickly left the scene. Qi Guanyi mentioned he had learned some manners from Jack. As Xian was still puzzled, Qi Guanyi suddenly hugged her, saying he would return in a few days to see her and figure out a way to get her out. However, he insisted on not letting Xian suffer in the meantime, so he accompanied her back to the laundry department, making it clear he valued her highly. The head eunuch, who assigned tasks at the laundry, dared not mistreat Xian anymore. After all, it wasn't her first time there. That evening, Xian was given a private room. Jack, enraged, jumped out and exclaimed that he had never taught Qi Guanyi any manners. He accused Qi Guanyi of using him as an excuse to get close to Xian. Xian dismissed Jack's competitiveness as pointless. Jack, frowning, asked if she had feelings for Qi Guanyi. Seeing Xian blush, Jack panicked. Surprised, Xian countered by asking if Jack was jealous. Jack denied it, claiming it was just the system's favoritism towards the player. Dismayed, he said if Xian wanted to pursue a romantic storyline, he would report it to the production team. Xiaobao later visited Xian, asking her to pass on the Tang Yuan made by Ash to Yunli. It turned out that Ash had already volunteered for a military campaign to help them. Meanwhile, Tongrui and the barbarian king were merely allies. The king was hopelessly infatuated, but Tongrui was only interested in causing trouble. Soon, she discovered a bug in the area. Hearing that Ash, the fifth prince, was leading troops there, Tongrui decided to exploit this bug to farm resources. Tongrui's system tried to report a bug but was blocked. It suspected that the fifth prince was headed for trouble. Meanwhile, Xian delivered the Tang Yuan made by Ash to Yunli. After tasting it, Yunli shared his past with Xian. He revealed that Ash had saved his life. Originally, Yunli was the son of a prominent family from the south. 3 years ago, his parents tried to force him into marriage, but he refused and ran away. The young master left home without money and was caught by human traffickers due to his good looks. They brought him to the capital to sell him for a good price. While negotiating the price, Ash happened to march past the city gate with his troops. Yunli gathered his courage to seek help and was rescued by Ash, becoming his attendant. Now, with the war turning dangerous, Yunli resolved to find Ash at the frontier if he did not return soon. At this time, Ash learned that the frontier had suffered consecutive defeats, even losing cities previously secured by Qi Guanyi. He cursed the frontier soldiers for their inability to defend the cities. The soldiers were frustrated, reporting strange occurrences in the area they were guarding. Ash visited the site and discovered an invisible barrier surrounded by the bodies of soldiers. The ground was soaked with blood. Sensing something sinister, Ash decided to withdraw his troops from the area. On the other side, Xiaobao specifically went to bid farewell to Xian, stating he was headed to the front lines because Ash's battlefront was struggling. Before Xiaobao could depart, Yunli came to him, pleading to be taken to the front lines to stay by Ash's side, arguing that Ash needed protection, and if the front lines were too dangerous, he wanted to be there with Ash. Ash was also greatly troubled here. He had witnessed the invisible barrier firsthand and knew how eerie the place was. Thus, he stopped his soldiers from advancing. However, some were displeased, believing Ash held superstitions and even argued with him. Ash, not being in the best health, was nearly angered to illness by this group. At that time, Xiaobao arrived with Yunli, which infuriated Ash even more. He had Yunli thrown out, ordering him to be sent back to the capital immediately. Yunli disagreed and was whipped. Unable to bring himself to harm Yunli further, Ash tenderly applied medicine to him at night. Still, he refused to let Yunli stay, insisting he return to the capital after resting for 2 days, emphasizing the great danger at the frontier. Yunli insisted on staying, even declaring he would retrieve Ash's body if the battle went poorly. Ash retorted that as a prince, his body would be recovered wherever he died, but if Yunli were to fall, he might vanish without a trace. With the front lines lacking military funds, Ash comforted Yunli, saying that with 2 princes at the front, the emperor could not ignore them. Yet both knew deep down that the emperor was unreliable. Xian tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Jack went out for a walk again, suspecting that Xian had fallen for Qi Guanyi. He mentioned that starting a romantic storyline could unlock other rewards. However, Xian sensed that Jack seemed unhappy. Jack told her not to overthink it and sprayed her with sleep-inducing perfume. Checking the system time, Xian realized she had been in this world for a year, and today was her birthday. On the other side, Yunli pretended to leave but secretly met with Xiao Bao before departing. He asked Xiao Bao to deliver a letter to Xian, stating he had returned home and would write another personal letter in 5 days. If Xian did not receive this personal letter, it would mean Yunli had encountered trouble on the way and asked Xian to report it to the authorities. Xiao Bao was puzzled, as Ash had assigned personal guards to escort Yunli, wondering how anything could go wrong. Still, he agreed to help with the letter and to keep it a secret from Ash, although he felt something was amiss. Yunli's so-called returning home was not to the palace, but to his family home in the south, the Yun family, a major rice supplier with an excellent reputation in the city. Yunli's return was likely to gather military provisions for Ash. Yunli, being the 3rd son of the Yun family, was warmly welcomed by his mother. Upon arrival, he immediately stated his intention to lend grain to the government. At this time, Yunli's father's elder brother and sister-in-law from the 2nd branch came forward. They claimed that their family had no chance of aligning with the 5th prince and slandered Yunli for allegedly colluding with foreign tribes, leading to Yunli's arrest. The 2nd branch acted out of fear that the 3rd branch might usurp their eldest son's inheritance rights. Meanwhile, Xian received a letter forwarded by the royal concubine, which was 2 days late. After reading it, Xian sensed trouble and quickly wrote a reply, asking the royal concubine to urgently deliver it to the frontier. She also met with Qi Guanyi, using his seal, without alerting the queen. Qi Guanyi, still recovering from an injury, agreed to help rescue Yunli. He was somewhat familiar with the Yun family in the south and understood Yunli's importance to Ash, prompting them to leave the palace for the rescue. They were accompanied by guards and traveled all day until they reached an inn to rest. At the inn, Xian finally had a chance to vomit from exhaustion. Upon arriving at the inn, Xian learned that Qi Guanyi had brought 500 men in case of emergencies. That evening, he also sent cosmetics to Xian, considering her skin type, dry, oily, and combination, to ensure her comfort. At the frontier, Xiao Bao received Xian's letter and immediately informed Ash that Yunli had gone home. Ash, in urgency, decided to rescue Yunli from the Yun family, knowing their internal complexities. Without aid, Yunli would be doomed. The 2nd branch accused Yunli of colluding with barbarians and tortured him for days, though Yunli denied the charges, insisting his actions were to gather military provisions for the 5th prince. Some in the Yun family feared Yunli might be telling the truth, risking their wrath, but the 2nd branch's lady dismissed this, claiming Yunli had no imperial decree and was lying, noting that collusion with barbarians was a crime punishable by the execution of one's entire family. At this time, they heard that someone from the capital had arrived, a prince, but not the 5th prince. It was the 7th prince. The Yun family panicked, fearing they had offended powerful figures. They decided to deny Yunli's connection to them. The 2nd lady firmly denied his existence, suspecting they had hidden him. Qi Guanyi guessed as much and split his men to secretly investigate the Yun residence. The 2nd branch's lady, driven by jealousy, was stunned that Yunli had indeed made connections with a prince. Now, having wronged Yunli, if the prince saw his injuries, it could spell disaster for the Yun family. Thus, they opted to keep Yunli hidden until the prince left, planning to expel him afterward. Even if Yunli complained to the prince in the capital, they doubted the prince would come south just for him, a minor figure. At this moment, Qi Guanyi, accompanied by Xian, stormed in. As a prince, his presence commanded attention, and he chose this moment strategically to keep the Yun family members confined in the living room, facilitating his men's discreet search of the premises. Qi Guanyi casually asked about local snacks, and while the second branch's lady was enthusiastically responding, he suddenly inquired whether Yunli preferred sweet or savory desserts. She slipped up in her response, attempting to change the subject, but was caught off guard when the fifth prince, accompanied by his men, arrived. Seeing Xian and Qi Guanyi there surprised her. She tried to claim it was a misunderstanding, and that Yunli was not part of their family, but Ash pierced her shoulder with a sword, demanding Yunli be handed over or face death. Eventually, Ash found Yunli in a dungeon, badly injured and breaking down in tears upon seeing Ash. Ash reassured him that the provisions had been delivered and questioned why Yunli endured such suffering for it. Yunli responded that he only wished to help Ash. Ash then helped him out of the dungeon. Meanwhile, Xian received a letter from the queen accusing her of abducting Qi Guanyi and condemning her to the laundry bureau. Qi Guanyi tore up the letter, vowing never to let Xian return there, and instead took her around the town. Ash impressed Qi Guanyi with his skill in distinguishing colors. Later, the trio returned to the inn where Yunli rested due to his injuries. Xian noticed Ash attentively feeding Yunli, reflecting on their seemingly perfect match. Qi Guanyi told Ash of his plans to head to the front line, but Ash warned that the front line was perilously unstable, with potential loss of life. Unlike previous battles, it seemed the enemy employed some strange tactics, creating an invisible barrier that their soldiers could not breach, causing severe casualties. The enemy could attack through this barrier, and their arrows could penetrate it. Hearing this, Xian suspected a glitch and expressed a desire to go to the frontier. However, both Ash and Qi Guanyi disagreed. So Xian went straight to her room to summon Jack and told him there might be a bug in the game. Jack immediately opened the map and realized the bug was significant. Although it could be fixed directly by the development team, the large number of corpses accumulated might cause a plague. Fixing the corpses along with the bug would make the surrounding people feel eerie. The best solution was to resolve it using the player's help. Therefore, Jack offered Xian a reward, a bottle of infinite fairy water with excellent beauty and skincare effects, and he also set a save point for Xian. Considering the corpses everywhere, Xian felt overwhelmed, but was tempted by the abundance of cosmetics Jack offered. Moreover, Jack said he would accompany Xian this time and take care of the invisible wall issue himself. They planned to first clear the corpses, then fix the invisible wall at the moment the two sides started fighting, making it unnoticeable to ordinary people. Jack had an idea for how to do it. The next day, Xian and Jack showed up at the inn. Qi Guanyi choked on his tea, while Ash focused on the main issue. "Did you two share a room last night?" Xian explained she had written to seek help, and Jack had only seen the letter that morning. Yunli quietly tugged at Xian's sleeve, indicating his support for her decisions. On the other side, Ash was encouraging Qi Guanyi, and even sent Xian a lipstick under Qi Guanyi's name to help boost his brother's popularity. By then, Qi Guanyi had already mounted his horse and taken Xian away. Ash told Yunli not to sympathize with Jack anymore, noting Jack's capability to keep up with them from a distance, indicating his strength. The group of 5 had just arrived near the military camp when they discovered that the imperial court had sent an envoy. After the envoy's carriage shook, his demeanor changed dramatically. He delivered an imperial decree stating that Qi Guanyi had left the palace with troops without permission and was to be punished with 50 lashes. Ash, having left the military camp without authorization, was ordered to redeem himself by leading troops in battle. Meanwhile, Tongri was still waiting for a chance to meet with Xian, believing that interacting with real people was more entertaining than the game. Xiaobao disagreed with punishing Qi Guanyi, but openly defying orders was not an option, and Qi Guanyi still received the punishment. Xian felt sorry and stepped forward, claiming she had a way to capture the frontier pass. Ash also stood up to vouch for her. The envoy was startled and said he needed to return to the capital to report to the emperor. As he left, the dark mist surrounding him dissipated, shocking the envoy, as the emperor had not ordered Qi Guanyi's punishment. Was this a case of falsely transmitting the emperor's decree? Xian stayed in the tent to take care of Qi Guanyi. Seeing this, Xiaobao tactfully withdrew. Qi Guanyi took the opportunity to confess his feelings, and even showed some jealousy towards Jack. Xian was conflicted. She knew both Qi Guanyi and Jack were not human but AI, yet she treated them as human beings. However, she was still unclear about her own feelings. Qi Guanyi did not pressure Xian but left her a troop of 500 to be cautious when she went to the main tent the next day. Before leaving, he hugged Xian, causing her to flee in embarrassment. As soon as she stepped out, Jack was already waiting in ambush. He asked Xian if she had developed feelings for Qi Guanyi. Xian countered Jack, asking why, as a system, he couldn't read her mind. Jack felt guilty and explained that he had not read minds in a long time, so he was unclear about Xian's emotional state. He admitted his possessiveness as an NPC was too strong, but meant no harm. After all, Xian had just mentioned that it was impossible for them to be together. Early the next morning, everyone in the military camp discussed the battle plan. Upon hearing that Jack would lead the operation, Xiaobao thought they were crazy. Qi Guanyi said he didn't trust Jack, but he trusted Xian. The group decided to present a united front and thus finalize their battle strategy. The enemy relied on the bug with the air wall, positioning archers halfway up the hill. Their plan was to send the first group of soldiers with shields to disable the enemy archers. Before the battle line started, they planned to send someone to infiltrate and signal from within, with Xian being the best candidate. Xian pointed out that she was a weak woman and could disguise herself as a refugee. However, Qi Guanyi offered to accompany her, which conflicted with Xian's plan to save the game multiple times for attempts. Bringing Qi Guanyi would complicate her ability to execute the plan, so Xian refused, but Qi Guanyi disagreed. Seeing the potential argument, Jack quickly slipped away. Subsequently, Xian agreed to apply makeup to Qi Guanyi, making him unrecognizable, even to his own mother. Xian was risking herself with a simple request: to fight well and return only after achieving merit, thus avoiding suffering. However, Qi Guanyi took the opportunity to lock Xian up, unwilling to let her take the risk. Xian summoned Jack and asked him to save her progress in the game, planning to commit suicide and reload if Qi Guanyi got into trouble. Jack informed her that player suicides do not count, so Xian had Jack unlock her handcuffs and they rode together to the front line. By this time, Qi Guanyi was already in ambush. Unexpectedly, a hand reached out from behind, startling Qi Guanyi. When he turned around, Xian punched him, scolding him for acting without considering her thoughts. Meanwhile, the army had walked into the air wall, with enemy archers above preparing to shoot. Ash's team could only defend themselves with shields, as the catapults couldn't reach the enemy. At a critical moment, Jack paused time and began to request a bug fix. Xian thought a new bug had appeared as Qi Guanyi froze beside her. Jack then announced that the air wall had been eliminated. Xian immediately fired a flare arrow. Ash launched the attack, knocking down the enemy archers. Xiaobao, receiving the signal, led a breakthrough from behind. From a distance, he saw a woman leaving on the city walls and immediately pursued her. While everyone was celebrating their victory, sudden news arrived. Xiaobao had gone alone to capture the enemy commander and was now captured. The enemy sent a letter stating that the only condition for Xiaobao's return was to hand over Xian to them. At this time, Xiaobao discovered that the enemy leader was a young girl and felt she shared a similar demeanor with Xian, possibly indicating a kind-hearted nature. However, Tongrui would hear none of it and even threatened that she had once stabbed Xiaobao's brother during a disagreement. She warned that if Xiaobao upset her, she would slash him hundreds of times. Meanwhile, Xian received a secret letter. Tongrui asked if Xian was also a player and invited her to join a game dungeon, sending her an expensive set of makeup as a gift. She also inquired if Xian could hand over Jack and Qi Guanyi for her research. Moved by the gift, Xian teared up, acknowledging the stereotype of a wealthy, beautiful player. However, exchanging the two men was out of the question, so she tearfully declined the makeup. On the other side, Qi Guanyi, despite his allergic reaction, discussed with others how to rescue Xiaobao. He disagreed with trading Xian for Xiaobao. Xian expressed her desire to meet Tongrui to understand her intentions better. Qi Guanyi saw Tongrui as a dangerous figure and feared for Xian's life, firmly opposing her going, fearing she was too fragile. Meanwhile, Tong Rui took Xiaobao's blood and found it too low in value for her medical purposes. She stated that once Xian brought the two men over, she would release Xiaobao. Xiaobao doubted Xian would come to his rescue, believing he was less important to her than the other two. Upon hearing this, Tong Rui mocked him, noting his lesser significance compared to the other players. Xiaobao comforted himself by saying that when Tong Rui first met him, she only made a small cut on him, despite stabbing Qi Guanyi seriously. He believed he wasn't that inferior. Tong Rui even wondered if he was mentally sound, given his good looks were wasted, and his blood test was a joke. Meanwhile, Xian requested a waist token from Tong Rui, and planned to secretly meet her with Jack. However, Qi Guanyi and Ash blocked them, insisting on accompanying them, but keeping a distance to ensure Xian's safety. Xian met Tong Rui in a tavern, and the atmosphere between the players was fairly good. Tong Rui initially thought Xian was bringing Jack for her research, but was surprised to learn Jack was Xian's system. Tong Rui felt inferior as her own system was unattractive compared to Xian's handsome one. Through their conversation, Xian learned that Tong Rui followed a path of concoction-based crafting. Xian obtained makeup through its application, while Tong Rui got it by studying materials and could acquire more raw materials. Essentially, one was into R&D and the other into product testing. Once Tong Rui mastered her skills, she developed the ability to make cosmetics from human blood. She stated she no longer needed Xiaobao, but wanted Qi Guanyi for her research. Xian explained to Tong Rui that AI in their world was beginning to develop emotions, and, aside from lacking a human body, was no different from humans. Tong Rui acknowledged this, but didn't see it as human. She advised Xian not to get emotionally involved, reminding her it was just a game world where having fun was what mattered. The development of AI and whether it had emotions were irrelevant to her as a player. Tong Rui urged Xian to let go of any moral reservations. Meanwhile, Qi Guanyi and the others who were eavesdropping nearby found the room where Xiaobao was held captive. Xian's moral bottom line could not accept Tong Rui's offer, even when presented with top-tier cosmetics as bait, leading her to tearfully decline. At that moment, Qi Guanyi and the others were already heading upstairs to rescue Xiaobao. Hearing the noise, Tong Rui thought she had been distracted by a decoy. Seeing this, Xian quickly grabbed Tong Rui to prevent any mishaps, while Jack was restrained by Tong Rui's chubby system. At this point, Ash burst into the inn. Upon seeing him, Tong Rui immediately stopped fighting with Xian and went straight for Ash, as his stats were even higher than Qi Guanyi's. Tong Rui then attacked Ash with a knife, causing Yunli to enter just in time to see Ash wounded on the arm. Xian quickly sprayed perfume on Tong Rui's head, and everyone hurried upstairs as soldiers outside began fighting with the barbarians. Tong Rui realized that just a drop of Ash's blood could produce high-quality makeup, making her even more determined not to let him go. The group escaped via the rooftop. Ash told everyone to retreat while he stayed behind to deal with Tong Rui. Vulnerable and unguarded, Tong Rui was easily captured by Ash. Meanwhile, Jack located the main system and inquired if there had been too many bugs recently. The main system revealed that it had upgraded all AI emotions, turning their world into a fully independent one. By the time the creators realized, it was too late. The main system also informed Jack that this place had become a parallel universe running concurrently. Jack could choose to leave Xian in this world, and even have the main system erase Qi Guanyi's existence, making Xian belong only to Jack. After falling asleep, Xiaobao was summoned by the main system to a space where he was told that Tong Rui actually had feelings for him, but didn't dare to fully open up due to ties with another world. The main system then gave Xiaobao a device, explaining that if he inserted the remote needle into Tong Rui's neck and pressed the button, Tong Rui would stay in this world forever. At that moment, Jack approached and informed Xiaobao that the device was a high-voltage electric pulse, capable of instantly destroying Tong Rui's helmet and brain in the real world. Consequently, Jack took the button away, concerned that those around Xian and Tong Rui might harm them. Jack immediately went to find Qi Guanyi, who also had a button but promptly discarded it, fearing others might harm Xian, and immediately went to find her. Xian learned from Qi Guanyi that the main system was tempting him to use the button to make Tong Rui stay in this world, which she found suspicious. Meanwhile, worried about Tong Rui's safety, Xiaobao kept her close by and disclosed everything the main system had told him. He mentioned that Jack had taken the remote button, but it had mysteriously reappeared by his side that morning. Tongrui asked Xiaobao what he planned to do. Xiaobao expressed that the button could harm Tongrui and, despite not knowing the exact nature of her ties to another world, he wanted to respect her decisions rather than make unilateral decisions to keep her. This response deeply moved Tongrui. Xian gave Qiguanyi's button to Jack. Jack asked Xian what she would do if this world were to be destroyed. Xian stated that if the game world collapsed, many AIs would die. The most direct and straightforward solution, she said, would be to cut the power, even if it meant reverting to a vegetative state and lying in a hospital bed. She felt this was preferable to many deaths. Moreover, she had developed feelings for Qiguanyi and felt she should say goodbye before anything happened. Jack patted the girl's head, assuring her that he would not let anything happen to her. He also gave her the reward for capturing Tongrui. The main system was surprised that Jack sided with Xian, but noted that Jack ultimately lost due to his emotions. As an AI, the main system said, reporting to the production team would not be credible, and if Xian contacted them to cut the power, the main system would lose control of the game. However, Xian would revert to a vegetative state, something Jack would not allow. Thus, the main system tempted Jack to join it in controlling the game world. But Jack did not want to play God or use despicable means to keep Xian, so he proposed a final showdown with the system. The main system shamelessly captured Jack and then tried to control Qiguanyi's mind, making him attempt to kill Xian. Just as Qiguanyi was about to lose control, Jack struggled fiercely, giving Qiguanyi a chance to break free. He had just released Xian when he was brainwashed again. In desperation, Xian grabbed Qiguanyi by the collar and kissed him, shocking him into joy. He could hardly believe it was real when they parted. The main system forced Jack to watch this scene, but Jack was not fooled and fought back. Hearing the commotion, Xian and Qiguanyi rushed out of the tent, finding a scene akin to Thanos fighting the Avengers. Jack initially wanted them to leave first. Xiaobao hurried forward to help, but was deceived by the main system and mistook Qiguanyi for the system. Qiguanyi was stabbed in the abdomen and fell. Xian begged Jack to save Qiguanyi, and seeing Xian's choice, Jack decided to go all out, altering the code and taking down the main system in the process. Qiguanyi's injuries healed, but Jack, having modified the code beyond his permissions, was automatically retrieved by the production team. Before leaving, Jack told Xian that he knew there was a problem with the main system, but didn't want Xian to leave this world, so he never let her contact the production team, hoping she could stay longer in the game world. Jack confessed to Xian, admitting he couldn't control his feelings. With tears streaming down her face, Xian watched as Jack asked Qiguanyi to take good care of her before he disintegrated into dust. However, some remnants of the main system remained. Wanting to destroy Xian, whom Jack cherished, before being eliminated itself, it used its authority to completely sever the connection between the two worlds. It also created a false impression that Jack was unharmed. Due to the different time flows in the two worlds, by the time Tongrui's parents noticed something was wrong, Xian and the others would have already died of old age in this world. The group discussed what to do next. Qiguanyi wanted to help Xian return, since everything important to her was in the other world. Xian decided to exploit a game bug, or an Easter egg. Tongrui remembered a place in the desert where the Wi-Fi was stronger, so they went there and found a secret Easter egg location, an underground elevator leading to a room resembling a studio filled with modern figurines. Xian decided to send a distress message to the production team. However, Tongrui was skeptical about the production team, so before contacting them, she sent a distress letter to her father first. Before long, Xian and the others received a reply from the production team. The team apologized and promised to send Xian a gift. Tongrui also received a reply. As the daughter of a president, the production team's attitude towards her was sycophantic. However, Xian no longer cared about the differential treatment because the gift she received was the return of Jack. Jack mentioned that the production team had been patching for 2 weeks to bridge the two worlds again. However, reverse data transmission was too dangerous, so they could only release Jack, the NPC. Qiguanyi coughed to stop him from touching Xian's hand. Qiguanyi was actually relieved to see Jack return, knowing that the living could not compete with a cherished memory. With Jack back, they could now compete fairly. At that moment, the system notified everyone that the game would shut down and restart in 10 minutes, allowing players to say goodbye to NPCs. But Jack informed them that, to make up for their mistakes, the production team had given them a special benefit. Jack set up a link and asked everyone if they dared to follow Xian and Tong Rui back to the other world, despite the risks involved. Ash was puzzled, thinking that the production team would normally just end the game world without offering such a benefit. Tong Rui smiled, reminding everyone of her father's influence. She had threatened in her email that if they simply ended the world, she would use her resources to ruin the game company. Thus, everyone followed Xian back to the modern world. Xian woke up from a vegetative state, and Qiguan Yi and the others also appeared in the hospital. Regardless of how plausible it was, it all worked out. Tong Rui and Xiao Bao grew closer, often watching Xian's live streams together, enjoying the rivalry between Jack and Qiguan Yi. Ash, along with Yunli, also came to the modern world, and now they are the top salespeople at a beauty counter with a live stream popularity even higher than Xian's.